Andreas Umland, political researcher, analyst at the Stockholm Center for Eastern European Studies, is with us tonight. Hello, Mr. Umland.
Hello, thanks for having me.
It is a pleasure indeed. So much is happening in the world. Bashar Al-Assad, sorry, but I need to ask, a political corpse, physically and reportedly alive now. If he's alive, can the Kremlin even try to restore him in power? What do you think?
My feeling is that this is now a gone thing, and I can't imagine how they will bring back their presence there. And it's quite embarrassing, not just for Putin personally, but this Assad regime, also his father's regime, they have been clients not just of the post-Soviet Russian Federation, but also already of the Soviet Union. So this is a quite historic loss for Moscow, not just for Russia, but also for Soviet Russia.
How come? Because how Assad's regime fall has weakened Putin's regime. I've heard that before, but how come, actually?
That's a good question. I'm not that much of a regional expert, but in general, I think these sort of regimes, they usually fall at some point, and then quite spectacularly.
True.
This is, I would say, a structural problem that such authoritarian regimes have, that they do not have the instruments to interact with society properly, and then
Absolutely.
the tensions between the regime and society rise, and then eventually the regime collapses.
All right, well, let's hope that two dictatorial regimes connected also will just collapse together. Why not? That will be a fine holiday for all of us in Europe. By the way, talking about Europe and America united, somewhat united, Trilateral meeting in Paris of Zelenskyy, Trump and Macron. Notre Dame de Paris reopening and all that, very fancy. And some even say game-changing. Do you see any positive signs for Ukraine yet, solely of the bare facts of that meeting? And what the parties have so far after it said in the media, I mean?
I wouldn't call it game-changing, but it was certainly good that Zelenskyy was there and communicated with Trump, and that Macron was part of it.
Right.
Whether this will then have really the results that Ukraine is hoping for is another question. But so far, it doesn't look too bad. Let's see what will come out of it. I mean, the signs so far are good, but with Trump, one never knows, of course.
Well, indeed. Trump walking and Trump talking are two different personalities, which turns out somehow not too bad for Ukraine. So Trump says now, I know Vladimir Putin well. It is his time to act if he wants to stop this war. We all know that Vladimir Putin not only does not want to stop this war, but surely would love to start a couple of wars, more wars if he can, with Assad's regime down and Trump's rhetoric and Europe rising. Do you believe Putin will actually stop and sit at the table to negotiate at some point?
Yes, if Trump makes his sort of veiled threats true and actually plausibly says that he's going to increase the support for Ukraine, I think then there would be a motivation for Russia to get down to negotiations. The problem here is what is then going to be the deal? And obviously, Trump wants to get a deal, but if that is then a deal where both Ukraine and international law will be at a loss, that would be basically allowing Putin to harvest the fruits of his aggression. And that would be, of course, not just bad for Eastern Europe and for Ukraine, it would be actually very bad for the international order, because then other countries may want to try to do the same.
Right.
So
Sure.
This is going to be far more complicated, I think, than many people imagine.
Oh, absolutely. But if Putin the first, doesn't react to what Trump does and takes all Trump's efforts for granted, which he actually does now. And it's like insulting, while Trump said it many times publicly, if Putin does not. So if Putin does so, neglecting him, so he would give Ukraine all it needs to turn the tide of this war. So my question is, will Trump actually do it? Give all the military aid and all the money that we need to turn the tide of this war?
That's a good question. I guess somebody in Washington
Right.
would perhaps better be qualified. Although with Trump, one never knows. I think this is he's, at least to me, he's unpredictable in his actions, and in a way that would be, if he would indeed give Ukraine everything it needs, the best scenario, because then Ukraine could presumably fully recover and liberate the territories it has lost. And it would be not just the best solution for Ukraine, would be also the best solution for the international order and international law.
Absolutely. Thank you so very much. Amen to that 3 times. And again, your expertise was absolute. Thank you so very much. We're waiting. What will Trump do? And then we can talk about that again very soon, just by the way.
Would be happy to.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Goodbye. Andreas Umland, political researcher, analyst at the Stockholm Center for Eastern European Studies, was with us at UATV English.